The first thing Do-hyun felt was pain. It moved through his body like fire, burning in his chest and arms and legs. He tried to open his eyes, but the light was too bright. He closed them again and took a slow breath. Where was he? The last thing he remembered was the ship. The alarms. The red lights flashing everywhere. His crew was screaming as they fell through the atmosphere of an unknown planet. Then there was fire, and then there was nothing. Now there was only silence, and the soft sound of breathing that was not his own. Do-hyun forced his eyes open again. The light was still bright, but he pushed through the pain. Slowly, the world came into focus. He was lying on something soft, like a bed but different. The material beneath him was smooth and cool, nothing like the rough fabric of his ship's bunks. The room around him was large and beautiful. The walls were made of something that looked like white stone, but it glowed faintly from within. There were no windows, but light came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Strange flowers in tall vases filled the corners of the room. They were purple and blue and colors Do-hyun had never seen before. Then he saw them. 2 figures sat in chairs beside his bed. They were watching him with eyes that did not blink. The first was tall and elegant. Her skin was pale blue, almost silver in the strange light. Her hair was long and white, falling past her shoulders like water. She wore robes of deep purple that looked more expensive than anything Do-hyun had ever seen in his life. Her face was beautiful but cold, like a statue carved from ice. Her eyes were large and golden, and they studied him the way a scientist might study an insect. The second figure was smaller, a child, perhaps. She had the same blue skin and white hair, but her features were softer, younger. Her golden eyes were wide with something that looked like wonder. She leaned forward slightly, as if she wanted to get closer but was afraid to move. Do-hyun tried to speak, but his throat was dry. He coughed, and pain shot through his chest again. The tall one raised her hand. A moment later, a small creature appeared from somewhere and brought a cup to Do-hyun's lips. The liquid inside was cool and sweet, and it soothed his burning throat. "You are awake," the tall one said. Her voice was smooth and musical, but there was no warmth in it. "Good. I was beginning to think you might die." Do-hyun swallowed hard. "Where am I?" His voice came out rough and weak. "You are in my palace," the tall one replied. "On the homeworld of the Myrith Empire. I am Queen Valara, ruler of 7 systems and protector of the eternal throne. This is my daughter, Princess Nira." The young one lifted her hand in a small wave. It was such a simple, almost human gesture that Do-hyun felt confused. "My ship," Do-hyun said. "My crew. What happened to them?" Queen Valara tilted her head slightly. "Your ship was destroyed when it entered our atmosphere. You were the only one we found alive in the wreckage. The others were already dead." The words hit Do-hyun like a physical blow. His crew. Haejin, Taemin, Sujin. All of them gone. He had known them for years. They were his friends, his family. And now, they were dead. He closed his eyes and felt tears forming. He did not try to stop them. When he opened his eyes again, both the queen and her daughter were staring at him with strange expressions. The queen looked confused, almost disturbed. The princess looked fascinated. "What is happening to your eyes?" Princess Nira asked. Her voice was high and curious. "Water is coming out of them." Do-hyun wiped his face with a weak hand. "I am crying," he said. "It is something humans do when they are sad." "Crying." The princess repeated the word like she was tasting it. "Why would water come from your eyes when you feel an emotion? That seems very inefficient." "Nira," the queen said sharply, "do not ask foolish questions." The princess went quiet, but she kept staring at Do-hyun with those wide golden eyes. Queen Valara stood from her chair. She was even taller than Do-hyun had thought, perhaps 7 feet or more. She looked down at him like he was something small and unimportant. "You should know that you are a prisoner here," she said. "Your species has been causing trouble in the outer systems. Your ships attack our trading routes. Your people spread like a disease wherever they go. When your vessel entered our space, we assumed it was an act of war. It was not, Do-hyun said quickly. We were on a rescue mission. We received a distress signal from human prisoners being held in this sector. We were trying to save them. The Queen's golden eyes narrowed. Rescue mission? You came to steal back the criminals we captured? They are not criminals. They are innocent people. Traders, explorers. Your empire took them for no reason. They trespassed in our space. That is reason enough. Do-hyun felt anger rising in his chest, but he was too weak to act on it. He could barely lift his head, much less fight. Queen Valara watched him for a long moment. Then she turned to her daughter. Nira, why did you ask me to spare this creature? The princess shifted in her seat. He looked interesting, she said quietly. I have never seen a human before. I wanted to see what one was like when it was alive. And now you have seen, the queen said. Are you satisfied? Princess Nira looked at Do-hyun. Their eyes met, and for a moment, Do-hyun saw something in her gaze that surprised him. It was not curiosity. It was loneliness. Deep, heavy loneliness that seemed too big for such a small creature. Not yet, the princess said. I want to know more. The queen sighed. It was the first truly emotional sound she had made since Do-hyun woke up. Very well, she said. The human will live for now. He will remain in this room until I decide what to do with him. Guards will be posted at all doors. If he tries to escape, he will be killed. She looked at Do-hyun one last time. Consider yourself lucky, creature. My daughter's curiosity is the only reason you still breathe. I suggest you keep her interested. With that, she turned and walked out of the room. Her footsteps made no sound on the glowing floor. Princess Nira stayed behind. She stood up from her chair and walked closer to Do-hyun's bed. She was shorter than he expected, barely reaching his shoulder if he had been standing. Does it hurt? She asked softly. Your body. I can see the bandages. Do-hyun nodded. Yes, it hurts very much. I am sorry, the princess said, and she sounded like she meant it. Do-hyun looked at her young face, at the loneliness hiding behind her curious eyes, and he felt something shift in his chest. It was not anger or fear. It was something softer. Thank you, he said, for saving my life. Princess Nira smiled. It was small and uncertain, like she was not sure if she was doing it right. You are welcome, she said. I hope you do not die. I have many questions. Then she turned and followed her mother out of the room, leaving Do-hyun alone with his pain and his grief and the strange feeling that his life had just changed forever. 3 days passed in the palace. Do-hyun spent most of his time sleeping and healing. The small creatures that served the queen brought him food and water and changed his bandages. They never spoke to him. They just did their work and left. The room was comfortable, but it was still a prison. Do-hyun could see the guards standing outside the door whenever it opened. They were tall and armored, with weapons that looked like they could cut through metal. He did not try to escape. He was still too weak, and he had nowhere to go. He thought about his crew often. Haejin with her loud laugh, Taemin with his terrible jokes, Sujin with her quiet kindness. They were gone now, and he was alone on a strange world with strange creatures who saw him as nothing more than an interesting animal. On the 4th night, something changed. Do-hyun was lying awake in the darkness when he heard a soft sound. The door to his room opened slowly. Just a crack. A small figure slipped inside and closed the door behind her. It was Princess Nira. She was wearing simple clothes instead of her royal robes. Her white hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked around the room nervously, like she was afraid of being caught. Princess? Do-hyun said. He sat up slowly, wincing at the pain in his ribs. What are you doing here? Shh, Nira whispered. The guards do not know I am here. I used the servant passages. She walked closer to his bed and sat down on the floor beside it. Her golden eyes looked up at him in the dim light. I wanted to ask you questions, she said. But my mother said I was not allowed to visit you alone. She says humans are dangerous. Do-hyun almost laughed. I can barely walk. I am not dangerous to anyone right now. I know, Nira said. That is why I came. I wanted to talk to you before you are healed. Before my mother decides what to do with you. There was something in her voice that made Do-hyun feel sad. She sounded scared. But not of him. She sounded scared of her own mother. What do you want to know? He asked. Nira was quiet for a moment. She seemed to be thinking carefully about her words. When I first saw you, she said slowly. You were sleeping. But your face was moving. Your eyes were closed. But your mouth kept making shapes. And sometimes, you made sounds. Small sounds. Like words that were not quite words. I was dreaming, Do-hyun said. Dreaming, Nira repeated. What is that? When humans sleep, sometimes we see things in our minds. Pictures, stories. Sometimes they are good and make us happy. Sometimes they are bad and make us afraid. We call them dreams. Nira's eyes went wide. You see things that are not real? While you are sleeping? Yes. That is very strange. She paused. Do all humans do this? Most of us, yes. Nira looked amazed. Myrith do not dream. When we sleep, there is only darkness. Nothing happens until we wake up. Do-hyun thought about that. A life without dreams. It sounded empty and sad. What else do you want to know? He asked. Nira moved closer. The water that came from your eyes. You called it crying. You said it happens when humans are sad. But why? Why does sadness make water come out? Do-hyun smiled a little. I do not know why it happens. It just does. When we feel very strong emotions, our bodies react. Crying is one way our bodies show what we feel inside. Do you only cry when you are sad? No. Sometimes humans cry when they are very happy, or very angry, or very relieved. Crying is not just for sadness. Nira looked confused. That does not make sense. How can the same action mean so many different things? Emotions are complicated, Do-hyun said. They do not always follow logic. Nira was quiet again. She looked down at her hands, which were folded in her lap. I saw something else when you were sleeping, she said softly. You were holding your own hands. You wrapped your arms around yourself and held on tight. Why did you do that? Do-hyun felt his chest tighten. He remembered the dreams he had been having. Dreams of his crew, of his family back home, of everyone he had lost. I was trying to comfort myself, he said. When humans are scared or sad, we sometimes hold ourselves. It makes us feel less alone. Comfort. Nira said the word carefully. By touching yourself? By touching yourself, yes. Or by touching others. Humans touch each other a lot. We hold hands. We hug. We put our arms around people we care about. It makes us feel safe and loved. Nira stared at him with an expression he could not read. Myrith do not touch each other, she said. It is forbidden among the royal family. My mother has never embraced me. She has never held my hand. She has never touched me at all. Do-hyun felt something cold in his stomach. Never? Never. Touch is considered weak. It is something lower creatures do. The royal family must be strong. We must be above such things. But you are a child, Do-hyun said. Children need touch. They need to be held. Nira looked at him with those lonely golden eyes. I do not know what that feels like. I have seen the servants touch their children. I have watched them hold each other when they are sad, but I have never experienced it myself. Do-hyun felt his heart breaking for this small creature. She was a princess, surrounded by wealth and power. But she had never known the simple warmth of a hug. That sounds very lonely, he said. Nira nodded slowly. It is, but I am not supposed to feel lonely. I am supposed to be strong. Like my mother. Your mother sounds very cold. She is the queen. She must be cold. Emotion is weakness. That is what she always tells me. Do-hyun shook his head. That is not true. Emotion is not weakness. It is what makes us alive. It is what connects us to other people. Nira looked at him with something like hope in her eyes. Do you really believe that? I do. On Earth, we believe that love and kindness are the most important things. We believe that caring for others makes us strong, not weak. Earth, Nira said. That is your homeworld? Yes. What is it like? Do-hyun smiled, thinking of home. It is beautiful. There are blue skies and green trees and oceans that stretch forever. There are mountains covered in snow and deserts of golden sand. And there are billions of humans, all living together, all touching and crying and dreaming. Nira listened with wonder on her face. It sounds like a strange place. It is a wonderful place. I miss it very much. Nira was quiet for a long time. Then she reached out her hand slowly, hesitantly, like she was doing something forbidden. Her small blue fingers touched Do-hyun's hand, just barely. Is this how you do it? She whispered. Is this touching? Do-hyun turned his hand over and gently wrapped his fingers around hers. Her skin was cool and smooth, but he could feel her pulse beneath the surface, quick and nervous. Yes, he said, this is touching. Nira looked at their joined hands. A single tear rolled down her cheek, silver against her blue skin. Oh, she said softly. I think I am crying. That is okay, Do-hyun said. Sometimes we need to cry. They sat like that for a long time, a human and an alien child, holding hands in the darkness of a palace prison. And for the first time, since he crashed on this world, Do-hyun did not feel completely alone. When Nira finally left, slipping back through the servant passages, Do-hyun lay back on his bed and stared at the glowing ceiling. He thought about the queen, cold and distant. He thought about the princess, starving for something she had never known. And he thought about what might happen if anyone discovered what had just taken place. He was still a prisoner. He was still in danger. But something had changed. He had made a connection with this lonely child, and he knew that connection would change everything. He just did not know how. 2 weeks had passed since Do-hyun woke up in the palace. His body was healing well. He could walk now, though his chest still hurt when he moved too quickly. The burns on his arms were fading, leaving behind pink scars that would probably never disappear. Princess Nira visited him every night. She came through the servant passages, always careful not to be seen. They would sit together and talk for hours. Do-hyun told her about Earth, about his family, about the life he had left behind. Nira listened to everything with wonder in her eyes. She had so many questions. Why did humans eat together? Why did they live in families? Why did they give each other gifts? Why did they say, I love you, to people they cared about? Do-hyun answered every question as best he could. And each night, when it was time for Nira to leave, she would hold his hand for just a moment. It was their secret, their small act of rebellion against the coldness of her world. But secrets do not stay secret forever. On the 15th day, the guards came for Do-hyun. They did not speak to him. They simply opened his door and gestured for him to follow. Do-hyun had no choice. He walked with them through the glowing halls of the palace, trying to memorize the path in case he ever needed to escape. They brought him to a large room with high ceilings and walls covered in strange symbols. At the center of the room was a raised platform, and on that platform sat Queen Valara, on a throne made of something that looked like black glass. She was wearing her royal robes, purple and gold, and her white hair was arranged in an elaborate style. She looked even more cold and beautiful than the first time Do-hyun had seen her. Human, she said. Come closer. Do-hyun walked forward until he was standing at the base of the platform. He could feel the guards behind him, their weapons ready. I have been watching you, the queen said. My servants tell me you are healing well. They say you eat our food without complaint. They say you sleep peacefully and make no trouble. Do-hyun said nothing. He did not know where this was going. But I have also heard other things, the queen continued. Her golden eyes narrowed. I have heard that my daughter visits you at night. I have heard that you speak to her, that you tell her stories about your world. Do-hyun's blood went cold. She knew. She knew about the secret visits. "Is this true?" the queen demanded. There was no point in lying. The queen clearly had spies everywhere. "Yes," Do-hyun said. "It is true." Queen Valara stood from her throne. She descended the steps slowly, her robes flowing behind her like water. When she reached Do-hyun, she was so close he could smell the strange perfume she wore, something like flowers and metal. "You have been filling my daughter's head with your human nonsense," she said. Her voice was soft but dangerous. "Emotions, touch, love. These are weaknesses. These are things that destroy empires." "With respect, Your Majesty," Do-hyun said, "they are what makes life worth living." The queen's hand moved so fast Do-hyun did not see it. She struck him across the face, and he stumbled backward. The guards caught him and pushed him back toward the queen. "You dare lecture me?" Queen Valara hissed. "You, a creature from a species so primitive you still fight wars over patches of dirt? You dare tell me what makes life worth living?" Do-hyun tasted blood in his mouth. His cheek burned. But he did not look away from the queen's eyes. "Your daughter is lonely," he said. "She has never known kindness. She has never known warmth. Is that really what you want for her?" "What I want is for her to be strong. What I want is for her to rule after me with wisdom and power. Kindness makes you weak. Warmth makes you vulnerable. I will not have my daughter destroyed by such things. You are destroying her by taking them away." The queen raised her hand again, but this time she stopped. Something flickered in her golden eyes. Something that might have been doubt. She lowered her hand and stepped back. "I will show you something," she said. She walked toward a door at the side of the room. The guards pushed Do-hyun forward, forcing him to follow. They went down a long stairway, deep into the ground beneath the palace. The air grew colder. The light grew dimmer. Finally, they reached a large underground chamber. And what Do-hyun saw there made his heart stop. Cells, dozens of cells, lined up in rows, and inside the cells were humans. Men, women, children. All of them wearing ragged clothes, all of them thin and dirty. They looked up as Do-hyun passed, and he saw recognition in their eyes. They knew he was human too. "These are the prisoners your people came to rescue," Queen Valara said. "Traders and explorers, you called them. Innocent people." Do-hyun felt sick. These were the people his crew had died trying to save. And here they were, locked up like animals beneath the palace. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked. The queen turned to face him. "Because I want to test you, human. I want to see what you are really made of." She gestured, and one of the guards brought forward a young woman from the nearest cell. She was maybe 20 years old, with dark hair and frightened eyes. A guard held a blade to her throat. "You have two choices," the queen said. "First choice, I release you. I give you a ship and let you fly away from this world. You return to your people and never come back. But these prisoners stay here. They will work in my mines until they die." Do-hyun felt his hands shaking. "And the second choice?" "Second choice, you take her place. You go to the mines instead. You work until you die. And in exchange, I release all of these prisoners. They can go free." The young woman with the blade at her throat was crying silently. The other prisoners were watching, their eyes full of hope and fear. Do-hyun thought about his life. He thought about Earth, about his family, about everything he would never see again. He thought about the pain of the mines, about working until his body gave out. Then he thought about Princess Nira. He thought about their conversations in the dark. He thought about what he had told her. That love and kindness were the most important things. That caring for others made you strong, not weak. If he chose himself, what would that say? What would it prove? "I will take her place," Do-hyun said. The chamber went silent. Everyone stared at him. Even the guards looked shocked. "What did you say?" the queen asked. "I will go to the mines. Let them go. Let all of them go." Queen Valara studied him for a long moment. Her golden eyes searched his face, looking for something. A lie, a trick, a sign of weakness. But Do-hyun met her gaze without flinching. He meant every word. Why? The queen finally asked. Why would you sacrifice yourself for strangers? They are not your family. They are not your crew. You do not even know their names. They are human, Do-hyun said. They are my people. And even if they were not, they are living beings who deserve to be free. No one should suffer in chains so that I can be comfortable. This is foolish, the queen said. This is weakness. No, Do-hyun said. This is what it means to be human. Queen Valara was quiet for a very long time. The prisoners held their breath. The guards did not move. Finally, the queen waved her hand. The guard lowered his blade and released the young woman, who collapsed to the ground, sobbing. Take him back to his room, the queen said to the guards. We are done here. What about the prisoners? Do-hyun asked. The queen looked at him with an expression he could not read. I have not decided yet. But I am beginning to understand why my daughter finds you so interesting. She turned and walked away, her footsteps echoing in the cold chamber. The guards grabbed Do-hyun's arms and led him back up the stairs. As they walked, Do-hyun realized something strange. The queen had not sent him to the mines. She had not released the prisoners. She had done nothing. The test was not over. She was still watching, still waiting. But waiting for what? 3 days after the test in the underground chamber, Princess Nira stopped visiting. The first night, Do-hyun thought she was just being careful. Perhaps her mother had increased security. Perhaps she was waiting for things to calm down. The second night, he began to worry. The third night, he knew something was wrong. He asked the servants who brought his food, but they would not speak to him. He asked the guards outside his door, but they ignored him completely. No one would tell him anything about the princess. On the fourth day, Queen Valara came to his room. She looked different. The coldness was still there. But underneath it, Do-hyun saw something else. Something that looked almost like fear. My daughter is sick, the queen said. There was no greeting, no introduction. Just those 4 words, spoken like they caused her physical pain. Do-hyun stood up quickly. What happened? What is wrong with her? The healers do not know. She developed a fever 3 days ago. It has not broken. She does not eat. She barely sleeps. When she does sleep, she has. The queen paused, as if the next word was difficult to say. Dreams. Bad dreams. She wakes up screaming. Dreams. Nira had told Do-hyun that Myrith do not dream. If she was having dreams now, that meant something had changed in her. Something fundamental. Why are you telling me this? Do-hyun asked. The queen's jaw tightened. Because she keeps asking for you. Even in her fever. Even in her sleep. She calls your name. She wants the human. She wants Do-hyun. Do-hyun felt his heart ache. That poor child. Alone and sick, and calling out for the only person who had ever shown her kindness. Let me see her, he said. That is why I am here. The queen looked like she had swallowed something bitter. I do not believe you can help her. But I have tried everything else. The healers have failed. The medicines have failed. You are my last option. She turned and walked toward the door. Follow me. They walked through the palace together, just the 2 of them. No guards. No servants. The halls were quiet. And the queen moved quickly, her robes swirling behind her. They reached a large door covered in golden symbols. The queen placed her hand against it, and it opened silently. Inside was a room even more beautiful than Do-hyun's prison. The walls were covered in paintings of stars and planets. The ceiling showed a map of the galaxy, with tiny lights marking each system of the Myrith Empire. The floor was soft, covered in something that felt like clouds beneath Do-hyun's feet. And in the center of the room, in a bed twice the size of any human bed, lay Princess Nira. She looked terrible. Her blue skin had turned pale, almost gray. Her white hair was tangled and wet with sweat. Her eyes were closed, but her face was twisted in pain. She was mumbling something. The same words, over and over. Do-hyun walked to her bedside and knelt down. He reached out and gently touched her forehead. She was burning hot. "Nira," he said softly. "I am here. Do-hyun is here." The princess's eyes fluttered open. For a moment, they were unfocused, lost in fever. Then they found his face, and something changed. The fear and pain faded just a little. "Do-hyun," she whispered. "Is it really you?" "It is really me." He took her small hand in both of his. "I am not going anywhere." Tears began to fall from Nira's golden eyes. "I had such bad dreams. I saw terrible things. I saw you dying. I saw everyone dying. And I was alone. I was so alone." "You are not alone," Do-hyun said. "I am here with you. And I will stay with you until you are better." He looked around the room and saw a chair nearby. He pulled it close to the bed and sat down, still holding Nira's hand. "Would you like me to tell you a story?" he asked. "A story from Earth?" Nira nodded weakly. "Please." Do-hyun thought for a moment. Then he began to speak. "Once upon a time, there was a little girl who lived in a small village by the sea. She had no mother and no father. She lived alone in a tiny house at the edge of the water. Every day, she would walk along the beach and collect shells. She had thousands of shells, all different colors and shapes. They were her only friends." Nira listened, her golden eyes fixed on his face. Her breathing began to slow. One day, a terrible storm came to the village. The waves grew huge and angry. The wind screamed like a monster. Everyone ran to hide in their homes. But the little girl's house was too small and too weak. The storm would destroy it. Do-hyun squeezed Nira's hand gently. The girl was very scared. She did not know what to do. But then she heard a sound outside her door. She opened it and found an old woman standing in the rain. The old woman was wet and cold and tired. She asked if she could come inside. "What did the girl do?" Nira whispered. The girl let her in. Even though her house was small, even though she had almost nothing, she shared what she had with the old woman. She gave her food and blankets. She held her hand through the storm. Nira's eyes began to close, but she fought to stay awake. Then what happened? When the storm ended, the old woman stood up, and she began to glow. She was not really an old woman. She was a spirit of the sea. She had been testing the little girl to see if she was kind, even when she had nothing. Was she? She was. And because of her kindness, the spirit gave her a gift. She turned all of the girl's shells into precious jewels. The girl became rich beyond her dreams. But more important than that, the spirit stayed with her. The girl was never alone again. By the time Do-hyun finished the story, Nira's eyes were closed. Her breathing was slow and steady. The pain had left her face. She looked peaceful for the first time in days. Do-hyun did not let go of her hand. He stayed in the chair beside her bed, watching over her as she slept. He did not know how long he sat there. Hours, maybe. The light in the room never changed, so it was hard to tell. But at some point, he became aware that he was not alone. Queen Valara was standing in the doorway. She was watching them, watching her daughter sleep peacefully with her hand in the human's, watching the gentle rise and fall of Nira's chest. "Her fever has broken," the queen said quietly. "The healers just confirmed it. She will recover." Do-hyun nodded but did not speak. He did not want to wake Nira. The queen walked closer. She stopped at the foot of the bed and looked down at her daughter. And for the first time, Do-hyun saw something human in her face. Something soft and sad and afraid. "I do not understand," she said. "You told her a story. You held her hand. That is all you did. How did that heal her when all of our medicine could not?" Do-hyun thought about the question. Then he answered as honestly as he could. "Sometimes the body needs medicine. But sometimes what we really need is to know that someone cares. Your daughter was not dying from sickness, Your Majesty. She was dying from loneliness." The queen flinched like he had struck her. "I have given her everything," she said. the finest education, the most beautiful rooms, servants to attend her every need. How can she be lonely? Because she has never had love, Do-hyun said. Not the kind you can hold. Not the kind you can feel. Queen Valara was silent for a long time. She stared at her sleeping daughter, and something changed in her golden eyes. Something cracked. Something broke. I thought I was protecting her, she whispered. I thought if she never learned to love, she would never know the pain of loss. I thought coldness was strength. I know, Do-hyun said gently. The queen raised her eyes to meet his, and for the first time, there were tears in them. Teach me, she said. Teach me how to be warm. Do-hyun looked at the sleeping princess, at the broken queen, at the strange path that had led him to this moment. The first step is easy, he said. Just hold her hand. The rest will follow. Queen Valara moved to the side of the bed. Slowly, hesitantly, like she was approaching something dangerous. She reached out and took her daughter's other hand. Nira stirred in her sleep. A small smile crossed her face. And Queen Valara, ruler of 7 systems and protector of the eternal throne, began to cry. 1 month had passed since Nira's fever broke. Everything was different now. Do-hyun was no longer a prisoner. He had been given rooms in the royal wing of the palace, just down the hall from Nira's chambers. The guards no longer watched him with suspicion. The servants spoke to him kindly. He was allowed to walk freely through the palace and its gardens. But more important than any of that, he had become part of something he never expected. A family. Every morning, Nira would come to his room and wake him up. She would drag him to breakfast, where the 3 of them would eat together. Queen Valara sat at the head of the table, but she no longer looked cold and distant. She asked questions about Earth. She listened to Do-hyun's stories. Sometimes, she even smiled. After breakfast, Do-hyun would teach Nira about human culture. He taught her songs and games. He taught her how to dance. He taught her about the holidays humans celebrated, and the foods they ate, and the ways they showed love to each other. And every night, before Nira went to sleep, Queen Valara would come to her daughter's room. She would sit beside the bed and hold Nira's hand. She would tell her that she loved her. She would stay until Nira fell asleep. It was not perfect. The queen was still learning. Sometimes she was awkward. Sometimes she did not know what to say. But she was trying. And that was what mattered. One evening, Do-hyun was walking in the palace gardens when Queen Valara found him. She was alone, without her usual guards and attendants. She looked almost ordinary in the fading light. "May I walk with you?" she asked. "Of course, Your Majesty." They walked together in silence for a while. The garden was beautiful, full of strange flowers that glowed in the darkness. The air smelled sweet and clean. "I have made a decision," the queen finally said, "about the human prisoners." Do-hyun stopped walking. He had thought about those prisoners every day since he had seen them in the underground chamber. He had wanted to ask about them, but he had been afraid of the answer. "What have you decided?" he asked. Queen Valara turned to face him. Her golden eyes were steady and calm. "I am releasing them. All of them. Tomorrow morning, they will be given food and medicine and transportation back to human space." Do-hyun felt his heart leap. "Truly? Truly. I have also decided to end all capture of human ships in Myrith space. We will establish proper diplomatic channels instead. Perhaps even trade agreements. Eventually." "Why?" Do-hyun asked. "What changed?" The queen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft. "You changed things. You showed me that strength does not mean what I thought it meant. You showed me that kindness is not weakness. You showed me what I had been doing to my daughter. By denying her love." She looked up at the stars. "I was raised to believe that emotion was the enemy, that caring for others made you vulnerable, that a ruler must be cold to be strong. But I watched you sacrifice yourself for strangers. I watched you heal my daughter with nothing but words and touch. I watched you give love freely, expecting nothing in return." "And what did you learn?" Do-hyun asked. "I learned that I was wrong." About everything. She paused. I also learned that I am tired of being cold. I am tired of being alone. I want to feel what you feel. I want to live the way you live. Do-hyun smiled. That is a very human thing to say. Perhaps humans are not as primitive as I thought. They continued walking through the garden. The flowers swayed gently in a breeze that Do-hyun could not feel. What will you do now? The queen asked. With the prisoners free and no war between our peoples, you could return to Earth. You could go home. Do-hyun thought about that. He thought about Earth, about his family, about everything he had left behind. Part of him wanted to go back. Part of him missed the blue skies and green trees and the sound of rain on the roof. But another part of him thought about Nira. About her smile when he taught her a new song. About her laughter when he told her jokes. About the way she held his hand like it was the most precious thing in the universe. I think I will stay, he said. At least for a while. Nira still has a lot to learn about being human. And someone needs to teach her. Queen Valara nodded slowly. I was hoping you would say that. She would be heartbroken if you left. And what about you, Your Majesty? Would you be heartbroken? The queen looked at him with an expression that was almost shy. I would be. Sad. You have become important to both of us, Do-hyun. More important than I expected. They walked in comfortable silence after that. Two people from different worlds, learning to understand each other one step at a time. The next morning, the prisoners were released as promised. Do-hyun stood in the palace courtyard and watched as dozens of humans were brought up from the underground chambers. They were clean and fed and dressed in new clothes. They looked confused but hopeful. One by one, they boarded ships that would take them home. As they passed Do-hyun, many of them stopped to thank him. They had heard what he did. They knew he had offered to take their place in the mines. You saved us, the young woman with the dark hair said. She was the same one who had been threatened during the Queen's test. I do not know how to repay you. 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 You do not have to repay me, Do-hyun said. Just go home. Live your life. Be happy. She hugged him tightly, then ran to board her ship. Do-hyun watched until all the ships had launched and disappeared into the sky. He felt a small hand slip into his. He looked down and saw Nira standing beside him. Are you sad to see them go? She asked. A little, he admitted. But mostly, I am happy. They are free now. They can go home to their families. But you are not going home. No, not yet. Nira smiled up at him. It was the brightest smile he had ever seen on her face. Good, she said, because I am not ready for you to leave. I still have many more questions. Do-hyun laughed and squeezed her hand. Then I will stay until you run out of questions. That might take a very long time. I have time. They walked back into the palace together. As they entered the main hall, Do-hyun saw Queen Valara waiting for them. She was standing in a patch of sunlight, and for once, she did not look like a cold statue. She looked like a mother waiting for her child to come home. Nira ran to her mother and wrapped her arms around her waist. It was still a new thing for both of them, this physical affection. But Valara did not pull away. Instead, she placed her hand on her daughter's head and smiled down at her. Did you say goodbye to the humans? The queen asked. Yes, mother. Do-hyun said he is staying with us. Queen Valara looked at Do-hyun over her daughter's head. There was gratitude in her eyes, and something else, something warm and gentle that had not been there a month ago. I am glad, she said. This palace feels less empty with him in it. Nira yawned suddenly, tired from waking up early to watch the ships leave. She leaned against her mother, her eyes growing heavy. Come, the queen said. You need rest. She led her daughter to a nearby couch and sat down. Nira curled up beside her, her head resting on her mother's shoulder. Within minutes, she was asleep. Queen Valara looked at Do-hyun, who had followed them and was standing nearby. This is your doing, she said quietly. All of this. The warmth. The love. The peace. None of it would have happened without you. You did the hard work, Do-hyun said. I just showed you the door. You walked through it yourself. The queen looked down at her sleeping daughter. A tear rolled down her cheek, but she did not wipe it away. I never understood before, she whispered. I never understood what it felt like to love someone so much that you would do anything to protect them. To see them happy. To make sure they never feel alone. She looked up at Do-hyun. How do you humans live with this feeling? It is so big, so powerful. It almost hurts. Do-hyun smiled and sat down across from them. We learn to let it fill us instead of fighting it. We learn that the hurt is worth it for the joy. Queen Valara nodded slowly. She pulled her daughter closer and closed her own eyes. I adored it, she said softly. When I first saw you holding her hand, when I watched you tell her stories, when I saw the way she looked at you, I did not understand what I was feeling then, but I understand now. I adored it. Do-hyun watched as the queen drifted off to sleep, her daughter safe in her arms. Two alien beings, mother and child. Learning what it meant to love, and he realized that this was why he had crashed on this world. This was why he had survived when his crew had not. Not for himself, but for them. To teach them that warmth was not weakness, that love was not danger, that the simplest touch could change everything. He leaned back in his chair and closed his own eyes. For the first time since he left Earth, he felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. He felt like he was home.